That's right, I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knick family. Welcome to the recap and reaction show. The Knicks beat Portland last night in Portland. I believe it was 123 to 114. Hart is back. Cat didn't play in the fourth hardly. Kolick didn't play at all. And Geoff and I are here to talk about it. My name is Stephanie, aka Queen. I'm joined by my co-host Jeff Klafter from the Happily Ever Klafter Daily Sports Blog, as well as resident panelist on the weekly show. Jeff, how are you? Give me your short synopsis of the game last night, and let's get into it.
Well, I'm reminded of my 11th grade math teacher, and one of those kids in my class asked him one time, raised their hand and said, "How do you do problem number 4?" And his answer was this: "Any way you can." Any way you can. How do you beat the Portland Trailblazers? Any way you can. It was just a breath of fresh air. I thought it was a much needed victory. You know, we were, 1-5 or 1-6 at our last 7 games. So, just to get back in the win column, and you start looking at the standings, and the Celtics are breathing down our heels. They're actually in front of us. The Sixers are playing well. The Raptors, with Barrett back, seem to be an unstoppable force. So you really have to get back to stockpiling wins, and this team, it just needed a victory last night. And I thought Mike Brown kind of coached that way. You noticed the rotation was a lot sharper, a lot shorter. We basically played 7 guys. And Diawara got like a few minutes, and Clarkson didn't get many minutes either. He played, I think, 13, but everybody else was up over 25. So you could kind of tell just by how the players were played the importance of this game. And it was a homecoming of sorts for Josh Hart. He used to play in Portland, and so he certainly looked like he's back to his old self, although, plus minus wise, he wasn't great. But I think that the other guys in the starting lineup kind of got their activation energy from him. And we saw all 5 starters really put up big numbers in this game. And, it shows the depth and versatility of the guys that we have. And we're getting closer to whole, and Landry Shamet should be back soon, which, strengthens that even further.
Yeah, for sure. Before I give my short synopsis of the game, I definitely want to acknowledge Keith Turner. Keith, man, we miss you. I miss you. I've asked about you on the show a few times. I was starting to get a little worried, so I'm happy that you tuned in today, so that I assume that to let us know that you're okay. Welcome back. Good to see you here. Yeah, let's start. There's so many ways we can go, right? There's Hart, there's OG Anunoby's fourth quarter, there's Towns not playing much in the fourth quarter, Kolick not playing at all. But I guess I want to start with Hart, if that's okay with you, Jeff.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
this was his first game back. He's missed 8 games. The Knicks were 3-5 in his absence. They were 8-3 or something in the games that he started. It might have even been more than that. I don't think that's a coincidence, though. I just think that the Knicks offense, particularly our starting lineup, is a bit more dynamic when he's in the game. I don't think you can go wrong with either him or McBride. I think they bring different things. But Hart, with his pace, it just gets you off to a good start with his pace. And it seems like the rest of the starting lineup seems to play a little faster, play a little more energetically with him in there. And then the secondary playmaking, ball handling, the steals, getting out, on the break. You can't really double Brunson, because if you get it to Hart and it's 4-on-3, he knows what to do. Like, he can play 4-on-3 and get it to the right player. So that offense is just a bit more dynamic, with him in there. But we talked about this before we started the season, that just the rotational, the lineup versatility, right? You could go with Hart. Like, to me, it doesn't matter who starts. Like, it doesn't matter if it matters in the sense of who helps you get off to a good start. I get that part. But for me, what matters most is the versatility of lineups. That you could put a McBride in there and you're going to get that point of attack defense, which helps your 3-point defense because you're not in rotation. Guys can stay home a little more. And on those passes to the 3-point line, you can get out there a little faster. And his shooting, even if he's not shooting well, he did not shoot well last night, 22% from 3, but the gravity is still there. Hart, you get all the things I just mentioned. And Mitch, the team is not as good offensively when he's in there, but the team is much better defensively in that double big lineup. At least that's what the stats are showing of late. That it's a better defensive lineup. Obviously offensively, the lineup is not as good, but that you have the versatility that Brown can go to any one of these lineups throughout the course of the game. And that's what you really like. But, I thought Hart was huge last night. They had the center on him. He hit his first 2 threes, got them thinking about it, pushing the pace. When a big is on Josh Hart, he could definitely get out in transition. There's no way a big is going to be able to keep up, with him. So I thought him just right off the bat, seemingly not having any rust, really, really helped us. What were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think that credit to the Knicks medical staff for having him ready to go when he came back. I think that's huge. Like, he didn't have the ramp up like certain other players do when they come back. So that's a credit to both him and he wanted to come back earlier, but they were like, no, you just hold off and we'll tell you when you're ready. And obviously they made the right choice because he looked like he hadn't missed a beat. And so, it's amazing how much of a connector this guy is, right? It's almost like he's the piece of the puzzle that makes everything else go. Not that he's the best player or even the second best player, maybe even not the fourth best player, but the things that he does allow us to play better. And make no mistake, this is a Portland team that's been playing extraordinarily well lately. There's 5 straight. So to go into their building and take care of business was fantastic. And I don't think we get this win if Josh Hart isn't out there on the floor. That's how instrumental he was. And I think that you said it best with the secondary playmaking. They were scouting report, blitz Brunson, double team him hard. Well, get it to Hart, and all of a sudden all of that collapses in a way that it doesn't with anybody else, and so just for that, I think he's an invaluable piece. So I really loved what he added to the ball movement. I think he was one of 3 Knick players who had at least 6 assists. It was all the Villanova boys, actually, I think, who were getting the ball sprayed around, which was nice to see. And if you look at shot distribution, I think for those who are egalitarian in their shot distribution preferences, last night was your night, right? Everybody ate, and had similar shot. Brunson still had the most, but again, if you're the guy handling the ball, chances are you're going to get the chance to have the most shots. And he played well last night. I liked Brunson's process last night much better than I did certainly in the Phoenix game, but even in the game before that. So it's a work in progress, and he needs, and we could talk about that more, but Josh Hart really unlocks a lot for this team, and we look much better with him in the lineup.
Yeah, without a doubt. And he played 31 minutes in his first game back. So I guess once he was cleared, he was cleared. Where do you want to go next?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess we should highlight OG because he was kind of the star of the fourth quarter, in my opinion. Welcome back. You can make shots, OG.
Right.
I mean, he did so much more than that, but as he always is, like he's a defensive monster when he wants to be. And that's most of the time, by the way. But when he's doing that and he's making shots, it really, it just, it's the avocado on the turkey sandwich on the pretzel bud. It's just that perfect, compliment, the accoutrement that really raises the level of this team. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he play some 5 last night in the fourth quarter?
He may have. He may have.
Not
I don't.
for a long time, but for a small stretch, I think they even had him at the center spot, which is crazy. I mean, interesting to say the least. But yeah, OG with a great game, and it's good to kind of see him, snap out of his shooting doldrums that he was in for. It seemed like most of the time that Josh Hart was gone, like it seemed like he struggled to shoot from the field, and maybe that's because of the increased pressure, or maybe it's because he's not getting the same quality of looks that he was getting last night. But he knocked him down last night, and he was amazing for us last night.
Yeah, he had 14 of his 24 points in that fourth quarter, and 10 of them, of those 14, in the final 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Like he was just, really good for us. Listen, we talked about the inconsistency. Like if this is OG, we getting a chip. Like if this is OG every night, like dial it up. I like our chances even against the Western Conference teams. We just don't know, with OG and to a lesser extent with Bridges, or some would say more with Bridges, what you're going to get on any given night. But last night he was phenomenal in that fourth quarter. You're right. When Josh went out, like that's when we needed, a little more consistency from him and Bridges, and we didn't get it. I don't know if Hart being out changes their responsibility a little bit. I don't know if the shots are a little harder when Josh Hart is out. I can't say to the eye test that's what I saw. Um, I just felt like they got their similar shots that they would usually get, and they seemed to be, missing it during the time that Hart was out. But I don't know. Do you see any correlation between Hart being out and them struggling a bit?
I'm not sure if I saw it on the court, but just from a theoretical or a scientific, from a mental standpoint, it just stands to reason, I guess, because just of how the Knicks offense was struggling, the blitz of Brunson was really much more effective. And yes, they were still getting shots, but I don't know if they were getting as wide open a shot. The Hart, a lot of
No.
times when he gets in the paint, can draw 2 to the ball, and then you get that extra little bit of space, and sometimes that extra little bit of space is critical, right? And so it may just be statistical noise, though. I don't know, but again, we'll see one way or the other. Tonight we were great with Josh Hart back. Let's see what we do Wednesday and Thursday, right? So small sample size. Hart was in his old city, so that maybe there's a little extra juice there too. We need to continue on this path and keep stacking wins, because this Eastern Conference, which everyone seems to say is weak, seems to be getting stronger and stronger, or at least the Atlantic Division does. I don't think anybody except Brooklyn is stockpiling all the losses for the rest of the division, because everybody else is playing pretty good basketball of late.
Yeah, we're just a game and a half ahead of fourth place Toronto. So to your point, they've been playing well. Let's talk about Cat. I'm interested in what you have to say. I'm interested in what the chat has to say. He didn't play in the fourth quarter. I had to my attention was elsewhere at different points in that fourth quarter. So if somebody in the chat can let me know, and you, Jeff, was this a matter of Cat wasn't playing good defense, so he was pulled out never to return, or Cat was already out, that team was playing well, and Mike Brown decided to stick with it? Let me know in the chat what it was. Like I said, I was in and out um, in that fourth quarter. I think there's two ways to look at this. One of them is the coach has to do what the coach has to do. If you're not playing well, you get pulled. If the team that's in there is playing well, they get to stay, and that's it. And you suck it up, and you be a team player, and you be ready. You be ready for the next game. Another way you can look at it is you don't want to lose your best player. You know, if you have a tight relationship with a player, you could do certain things, and you don't have to worry about the relationship because the relationship is solid, right? Um, but if you don't have a great relationship with a player, or you're a new coach trying to develop these players, sometimes it might work in your best interest to let a guy play through his struggles. Um, and with the long range bigger picture in mind is that I need to bond with this player. This player needs to know that I'm for him, I'm with him, and then hopefully as the season goes on, I'll get more out of the player. Let me know where you stand on that issue, chat and replay game, or if there's another dynamic at play. I think the other part of this context is the Knicks have lost, what, 5 of their last 6? So there is a certain amount of urgency as well to get a win, right? And that can also, I think that showed also in the tight rotation that you mentioned, Jeff. He played, what? He played 8. He played 9. I say 8.5. I would say 13 is okay in general. Not for Hart, not for Clarkson, in my opinion, but who was like 1 for 89 last night. But basically, it was a really tight rotation. So to your point, that could have also played into the Cat decision. Like, we need to get this win, no holds barred. I'll have plenty of time to bond with Cat and what have you, but we need this win. And Cat had played well through 3 quarters, right? 20 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists. He was involved in the offense, I thought. Shout out to Ron from Still Knick Fans, Know the Ledge Show Saturday, who brought up a great point. We can't just look at shot attempts, right? Turnovers mean you had the ball, right? Free throws mean you had the ball. Every time you have the shot, the ball in your hand, sometimes it doesn't even register, because if it doesn't lead to an assist, if you don't shoot it, but you still had the ball in your hand to do something with. You just chose not to shoot it, right? You chose to pass it or what have you. So we can't just look at field goal attempts to gauge how involved he was in the game. But last night, I believe he had 10. He did have 10 shots in the first half, but he also had the ball in his hand more, which is really what I want to see, regardless of what he chooses to do with it. But he played well last night overall in those 3 quarters. Thoughts on Cat overall last night, and thoughts on him not playing in the 4th quarter?
Well, it's kind of ironic that it was only like the 2nd time in the last 7 games where he shot better than 50% from the field. And that's the time that Mike Brown chose to not play him in the 4th quarter. That's kind of a bizarre thing. Now, for those who are into plus minus, usually he's one of the best plus minus players we have. And last night, he was one of the worst. I think he was a -3. Josh Hart was a 0. But among the starters, everybody else was really good. And so a lot of that had to do with that 4th quarter run. I think we might have been down by a point when he left the game. And then we had a big surge when he sat. But I'm kind of wondering if it was maybe somebody in the chat said they thought he hurt his hand, and maybe they were being cautious with him, and maybe we're just like speculating. I don't know what the case is. I kind of think it's a dangerous precedent, though, if we just decided, Cat, you're not playing. Like, I think that's a really good way to lose one of your best players. And if a coach loses a locker room, he's toast. So a house that's divided against itself cannot stand. So if Towns is on board and he's he was hurt, or if whatever the case may be, but you got to have that relationship, as you said, because if he he's of all the players, he's kind of looked like the one he's playing hard, but I don't know if he's always looked bought in at the same time. It's just like he doesn't like his new role very much, and not say that I can blame him for that. And so, when you've got the player who seems to be, like, this is speculation on my part, who seems to be a little bit on the edge, then when you decide, okay, I'm going to not play him in the final 9.5 minutes, assuming there's no injury, which, there's none been reported, but that doesn't mean anything because it's the Knicks. Strange choice to have him only play 27 minutes. And that's not to say that they couldn't have, played well with if he had stayed in the game. I don't think it was like they had to sit Cat to get this win, and I'm curious if it was Brunson who was struggling, would he have sat the last 9.5 minutes and rocked with Deuce and whomever else just because things were going well, or would Brunson have gotten back in the game? I think that's something that David Smith brought up, and I think it's an interesting point. Like, are we treating Cat differently than we're treating Brunson? There's something to be said that each one of your kids is different, and so you need to treat them the same, but you can't. Sometimes you have to be different in the way that you approach discipline and other sorts of things. And so, I don't know what the correct way to go is, but as a results merchant, as a fan, I want to go with whatever lineup wins us the game. I don't really, the player egos, they could get over it as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to be a champion, you've got to be willing to sacrifice. And last night, it was Towns' turn to sacrifice, and he did. And when he was on the court, like you said, he was at 20 points, 11 rebounds in 27 minutes. It's an outstanding counting stat performance. But again, -3, something, not necessarily clicking and connecting. Now, that might have been the lineups that he played with. I think he got in that second unit that had Jordan Clarkson in it. That was not particularly good.
Yeah, I'm not big on the plus minuses, Geoff, in terms of how a player has been playing.
I understand that.
Yeah, but I hear you. If you got to take it in context from watching the games. So you did bring up the point, the lineup, that he was in.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you about that. I just know that when Cat's plus minus numbers are really good, they get pushed to the forefront a lot of times. And so I think it's fair to say, well, last night that wasn't the case. And maybe that went into the thinking of Mike Brown. Maybe it didn't, but that he has more information and data on that sideline with their, tablets and stuff than we do. So I imagine he's, or at least his bench is analyzing all of that stuff. But again, it's just one game. I don't think we need to make a mountain out of a molehill with this stuff. He pushed a button and it looks like it was the right one for then. But as you said, if we hope to get where we need to go, it's going to include Towns, getting more than 27 minutes. But really it's just 4 or 5 minutes off of what he normally plays, right? So normally you would expect him to come back in at the 5 or 6 minute mark and play the rest of the game, and that gets him up to 32 minutes, which is kind of a normal shift, I would say, right? So I'm hoping that maybe it was just that his hand was hurting a little bit and it's okay, but they just wanted to be cautious just in case. So
I think whether it's a big deal or not depends on Cat. I think that's what it comes down to. It depends on Karl Anthony Towns. And you got to remember, this is not a one-off. Like, we've even been saying, like, how Cat has been used and things like that. It just kind of seems off. So if Cat is seeing this as this is what needed to happen for us to get the win, fine, But if he's saying, "Oh, this is just yet another example of how I'm an outsider," that's a little strong, outsider. But like, this is like just another occasion where I feel like I'm being treated where I'm being treated differently. And you hear people saying Cat has to sacrifice. Even Hart said, when I come in, you know, I know A, I know B, I know C, I know Cat is being asked to sacrifice, and then I'm saying to myself, why is he being asked to sacrifice? Like, is it what do they mean by that? Are they saying that, you know, the ball is going to move a bit more, so he'll probably get less shots, than he did last season? Okay, that part I understand in terms of sacrifice. But are they saying something like, I don't understand, what do they mean when they said he has to sacrifice? Then David Smith says, why doesn't Brunson have to sacrifice?
Well, we have two 50-40 guys, and they're Brunson and Cat. Those are not the places you should be sacrificing, in my opinion. Like, those are the guys that, make it a buffet, let them eat all they want to. I want those two guys taking the majority of the shots. If anything, the guys I want to see take fewer shots are Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart and OG Anunoby, because they're, for the most part, far less consistent over the course of their career. So, as far as that goes, I want to see Towns get shots, and I want to see Brunson shooting the ball a lot, because those are our two best players. We don't need an equality of outcome as far as everybody gets 12 shots in the game. Like, I don't, this isn't, that's not what this is about. It's about maximizing your possessions and getting the best out of the talent that's on the floor. And I don't think we maximize Cat very much at all on most of these games. So I'm curious to see how that continues to develop going forward. I think it's a storyline to pay attention to, because Mike Brown has a kind of a reputation for doing this to certain players in other locations. Not a star player necessarily, but Keon Ellis comes to mind in Sacramento. He was playing very well, and then he just, got benched ceremoniously for really much no reason when he was doing a great job. And it feels like on a lesser scale, but it does feel to me like maybe Towns is getting a little bit of the Ellis treatment from his coach, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah. We'll see how it, we'll see how it plays out. But overall, I thought Cat played well, and I think over the past few games, he's been much more involved in the offense as a passer. He has a multifaceted skill set, and I think it bodes well for us to use it. I don't think it's all Mike Brown. Some of it is Cat as well. Before we get to the chat, anybody else you want to talk about? Brunson, 26.6 rebounds, 8 assists. Like you said, you liked his process last night. Mitch played 25 minutes. Let's talk about Mitch, actually. I thought Mitch was really good last night in his 25 minutes. His minutes are creeping up. I like the chemistry that's developing between him and Cat. And there was one time in the paint where Mitch made an interior pass to Cat for two. He had 6 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks, 6 offensive rebounds, and he was really active last night. They were looking for him on the alley-oops. This was probably the most involved I saw him on the offensive end in terms of them looking for him, and defensively. Again, I don't know if this is the Mitch we're going to get every game, right? Like before, Mitch was like every game, he was like a defensive, domino. I think he's solid most nights. And then there'll be, a night where he'll be dominant. I thought last night was one of those nights where he was near dominant. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I thought that this was the stocks were back for him. Like 6 stocks that's kind of the Mitchell Robinson that we grew accustomed to in previous seasons, and his blocks especially, I feel like, have been down this year. So it was really good to see him have a game where he, felt like himself. But we've seen this before, right? Mitchell Robinson is kind of like a turtle. He comes out of his shell every 1 or 2 games, and then he'll retreat back into it for a couple of games. And, you're going to see that because he's going to sit one of these next 2. for sure, but probably the best Mitchell Robinson performance of the season, in my opinion. And I think it's interesting the dynamic between Towns and he, because I feel like when you pair he and Towns off the bench, the results have been much better for whatever reason than when those two are in the starting lineup together. And I don't really know if it's just because of, if it's during that stretch that maybe the team doesn't have their best their best players on the floor so they can utilize them and beat them in certain matchups, but that pairing seems to be getting better, and maybe it's just larger sample size. They're getting more used to playing with one another because they didn't do that much last year because Cat was in the lineup and he was always hurt. Mitch was always hurt. So he only played like 25 games last year. So maybe it's just a question of them getting comfortable with each other. I'm not sure which it is, but it's just, have you noticed that as well? Or is that just something that I'm imagining there with the dynamic of those two, with him in the bench when we go to the double big? It's looked better than when we go to it straight out of the gate.
Yeah. And because I'm wondering, and I would have to look at the tape and when they come in, is he doing it situationally or is it an automatic? Because that's the thing. When you're starting the game, you're starting the game. It's not situational, whereas when you're employing it during the game, you can look and say, oh, this is what we need right now. We need a McBride lineup. We need a double big lineup, right? You could deploy it, you know, based on a game situation as opposed to just starting with it, no matter what. And I love that about this roster. We talked about this to start the season. I absolutely love it about this roster. And I think that is the case, Geoff. And the connection between them is just getting better and better. To your point, he didn't play a lot last season. They didn't have that time to develop the chemistry. But Towns knows what it is, what it's like to play with another big. So this is not a big deal for him. He knows how to do it. It's not much of an adjustment. And the nice passes he gives, Mitchell Robinson, and that gets Mitch going, a little bit, touching the ball. Even if you're a rim runner, even if you're a defensive player, getting a basket here or there is energizing.
And we've seen that Robinson can have an effect on a playoff series, right? We've seen what he did a couple years ago against Cleveland. We've seen him have his moments against Boston, and so we know that he's a playoff riser, and that his defense can be disruptive, and his rim protection when it's at its elite level. And I haven't seen that really very much from him this year. I feel like a lot of times, and I don't know if it's scheme related or what, but it just seems like he's in the game and people are scoring at the rim anyway. Like there's not that deterrence and fear factor, whatever you want to call it, that we've seen in seasons past. But if you have performances like you did against Portland, where you're blocking 3 shots and you're stealing the ball and those sorts of things, that's going to bring that back in a hurry, right? It's kind of a reminder. So hopefully hopefully those stocks continue to climb. Well, maybe not climb. 6 is a lot. So, but not decline to nothing, like stay. And I'd like to see him with at least 2 blocks a game, and any steals that he gets are a bonus as well. But really encouraged by that pairing, because if the 2 big lineup can work, that makes us a lot more versatile. And when you're having those moments where maybe your defense is struggling a little bit, and then you can keep him out on the floor, that maybe limits the quality of the 3-point shot opportunities for the other team. So a lot of good can come of that if they play well together.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing I want to talk about, and you could bring up something else, if you want, um, was a few things. But let's talk about, Kolick didn't play last night, and this could just be a one-off. I think it's just something to take a look at. We were thinking about, when we become healthy again, has Kolick earned a spot in this rotation, or will he go back to being situational? I thought it was interesting that he didn't play last night. and you can say where the minutes come from. McBride played 30. McBride played 35 minutes and didn't shoot well. To I forgot who it was. Somebody in the chat said that but he did play well. Maybe it was a defensive thing. Maybe it was, we have a connector here in Josh Hart. The ball is moving. We don't quite really need that. We need more defense. Let's just bump up McBride's minutes, even though he's not shooting well. It's hard to read into it because it's one game. It'll be interesting to see over the next stretch of games how this plays out. But what's your initial thoughts?
I think it's kind of what we expected, right? I kind of thought that, and Kolek has been good, and I don't think there's any question about that. And I think his defense has much improved from what it was, even at the beginning of the season. I think he tries really hard defensively, but when you can get better rebounding in the person of Josh Hart, and you can get, not the same playmaking for sure, but similar in that he can be that secondary playmaker that he's that secondary playmaker who can do some things, and so he provides a lot of the similar things as far as schematically goes. So maybe there's not as much need to play Kolek. I'm not like overly sad that Tyler didn't play. Like it is what it is. I think that this is a deep roster, and when injuries happen, he can fill in well. The pick and roll between he and Towns is really, really good. I think that the numbers show that the pick and roll with Hart and Towns is really, really good also. So I think that's something that you still get when you have when you have Hart in the game. So I think that I hate to say it this way because it sounds mean, but I think that's where Kolek belongs in the pecking order on this team. I think that the better players are playing, and Deuce's point of attack defense is greater, in my opinion, than what Kolek brings to the table for what this team needs. And so I would rather him have the 30 plus minutes, and I kind of want Josh Hart to have 30 minutes, and so I thought it was interesting how everybody kind of had 30 minutes but Cat, it seemed like, but that I wouldn't go with that route necessarily. But I just don't think that there's necessarily time in the rotation on a full-time basis. I think in the next couple games you're going to see it though, because when you have back-to-backs, you want to extend your rotation. I really felt like Brown understood the urgency of this game, and he treated it more like a playoff game, in my opinion. And so and so he said, we've got to get a win here. So I'm gonna shorten the rotation, rely on my bench less. I mean, even Jordan Clarkson didn't get that many minutes. I mean, 13's not bad. It's about what he gets, maybe a little bit less, but even so. And Diawara played like 3 minutes, so that's just like really a cup of coffee. So he relied on 7 guys, and those, to their credit, those 7 players played well. I think we don't want to do that for every game for an 82 game season. That was part of Thibodeau's downfall, but if you're doing it for one game, I don't think it's as bad. And nobody played 40 as far as I understand. Right. So yes, the minutes load was heavier, but it was heavier across those 7 players and not heavier across 2 or 3 starters.
Right. That's a great point, because it wasn't like McBride got 20 and then he played 35. Those other 15 minutes went to OG and Mikal Bridges, who logged 40 each. Right. So that is a great point. I like Kolek. To me, I have questions about the Knicks ball handling on this team. I really, really do. But we were able to get away with it last night. And Josh Hart definitely helps, in that regard. Maybe Brown is arguing again. It's only one game. But if this continues to happen over the stretch of games, maybe he's arguing that Hart is bringing some of that connection, in playmaking that Kolek brought. A different level, right? Kolek will pass you into shots you didn't even think you had. But we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds. But yeah, when things get tight, Brown goes to a tighter rotation, and I've seen that a few times this season. But the good thing is that when things are looser, he goes to a looser rotation. Like he's flexible, in that respect. All right, let's get to the chat. Paris Douglas super chat. You can't offend Mitch either. He was game changing. He definitely was game changing. I don't think you're gonna offend Mitch. I don't know. He might not like it. He might not have even offended Cat. I don't know. I don't know. Um, but I don't know if Mitch doesn't expect to close. So I don't know if Mitch would have been offended. Maybe he would have. I don't know. All right, let's get to some of these other comments. Born Freedom, Brown needs to shorten his lineup. If it gets any shorter than last night, we're gonna be playing 4-5. But
That's
maybe
right.
you mean overall, Brown, Born Freedom. Overall, he needs to shorten it. Um, Andrew K. Knicks need Josh Dog attitude. Yep. Bob Solo. Man, this is crazy. The younger players not playing raises some questions. What questions does it raise? Bob Solo. I mean, I think Mike Brown listen, if you ask me, this is a mandate from the front office to get these young players some time, try to develop them, because given a collective bargaining agreement in next year, 2 years from now, we're hoping one or two of them can actually be in the rotation. And in order for that to happen, we have to give them some game time. And I think Mike Brown has done an awesome job of picking the spots, of when to put him in. Diawara started for a little while. We saw some McCullough. Kolek, was a regular in the rotation, with the injuries. Played well. Huck Porty, when Mitchell Robinson was out, we saw some Huck Porty. I think he's been great. I'm not sure, other than Kolek, I'm not sure we're going to have three young players playing every single game. It's just not going to happen because they're not ready. And I get you. Well, in order for them to be ready, we have to play them. But the time is now, as far as the Knicks, continuity and the Knicks winning the championship. The time is now. So the question is, how much of this fine line between developing them so that they can be ready down the line, and that could be playoffs, that could be next year, 2 years from now, and getting continuity, with your best players and actually winning games, actually winning games. So I think that the young players have been instrumental in some of these wins. We've gotten some really good minutes out of them. But I think if you're playing two or three young players every single game, you're going to see the ups and downs of them much more than spot duty. And they play well in that spot duty. So I'm not sure the questions it raises for you, Bob Solo, and the rest of the chat. Put it in the chat and let me know, what questions does it raise for you. Anything you want to add?
Well, get used to it, because when Shamit comes back, those spot minutes are even going to get less, right? Because Coach Brown likes Shamit a lot, so expect him to be at least 15-20 minutes. And so if that's happening, then Kolek is buried on the bench again for sure, right? Because there's just not enough minutes to go around, and you probably will see Clarkson's numbers get minutes reduced too, because he only played 13. So what that looks like, how that dynamic comes into play, will be interesting. but I'm not necessarily sure it's a slight on the young guys that they're being benched for talented veteran guys. Like, it's not like we're playing some, bum Lou Amundsen out there, just because he's got experience. The guys who are in front of him are really good players. Like Landry Shamit's a good player. Josh Hart, really good player. Deuce McBride has really earned his minutes of late. This was the first game, I think, in a month where he didn't shoot the ball well from three, but he's not afraid to take those shots either. And sometimes just even on a night where he doesn't shoot well, just the gravity and him being a willing shot taker is important for this team. And so, you see those sorts of things, and it's just a question of who are you going to sit? Like, who do you not want to get minutes? We're already upset, or at least I am, that Towns only got 27 or 28, right? Well, how many do we cut McBride down to 20 minutes so that make sure that Kolek gets 10? I don't necessarily think I want to do that, but I think that the depth is there for when injuries happen, and it's needed over the course of an 82 game season. I think, honestly, because of the opponent, I think you'll see that more of the bench players play against Sacramento. And if Robinson is out, that'll probably necessitate that too. But I think you may see a lot more small lineups again, so he can get more minutes for even for a guy like Kolek, right? That's one way you can do it, is by playing small and loading up on the front court with Towns and Anunoby and Diawara. Yabusele's still hurt, I think, right? But I think he's squeezed out of the rotation too, to be honest. And it makes an interesting question, is that, even if the Knicks do make a trade of Yabusele, where are the minutes for the player that you're bringing in coming from? Because we're already trying to figure out, how do we get Kolek in the lineup? Like, so if you're not trading away a rotation piece, if you're just, I'm going to just use the example of Daddier and Yabusele, for example. Well, you're not letting any minutes go out the door. Well, then where is that player who's better than those two guys? Obviously, because that's why you would make the trade. Where is he going to squeeze into the rotation? Who's going to get their minutes reduced as a result? And how many? Because if you're bringing in a guy like that, you're going to, you would think you would want him to play. So, I think it's just that when you have a veteran team, a team that's vying for hopefully a championship, that development of the young guys is important, and we've seen that. And I think when you have injuries and so forth, you'll see it. But when the roster is right and the roster is full, the best players have to play, and those are not our young guys.
Facts. Don't say y'all like Josh Hart now, last 2 years. And when we traded for Hart, I have been defending him from day one. You have been. David Smith, appreciate you. 32 assists last night. Knicks 11-1 this year when they have at least 30 assists. They were 20-2 last year when they had at least 30 assists. Ball movement and team basketball is the key to Knicks' success.
Great comment, David Smith.
Yeah.
Great comment.
Yep. I believe Josh helps with JB and Mikal. He seems to keep them calm while he is adding chaos. But everyone played well last night. Deuce did not shoot well, but Knicks Nation 1127 also said that you don't have to shoot well to play well in another comment, and that is the truth. Paris Duggar, Mike Brown missed a critical chance not playing Kolek and Cat in early fourth minutes while Brunson sat. Deuce can't run offense. Okay. All right. We did okay last night. Keith Turner, I mean, it's Portland. Not a lot I could take from beating a bad team. That isn't bad, if that makes any... A bad team that isn't bad, if that makes any sense. They were hot, though, and the Knicks were not. And I think that makes a difference, because the Knicks are a better team, but haven't been playing well. Portland, you can, say is not as good of a team, but they had won 5 straight. And so for the Knicks to rise to They came in, I'm sure, feeling good about themselves. Knicks limping in, obviously getting Josh Hart back helps. I thought it was a good win to beat. I get what you're saying, a bad team, but that had been playing well. Right. Paris Duggar, no slight on Cat. He stayed with what was winning. Okay.
As long as Pat thinks so, that's the right take, right? As long as that's how Towns feels about it, then that's fine. But if Towns feels differently about it, then you have a problem. And I don't know if there's a problem or not a problem. Time will tell. But
yeah, we're just having a discussion. Yeah. Walter White, if Towns can't deal with not playing down the stretch of one game, I don't want to speculate on what's going on in the locker room because they're all good characters. Yeah, I don't think the locker room is falling apart. Oh, sorry. That's Cat fault, Keith Turner says. That's Cat fault if he can't find his role. Wow. My issue with some Knicks fans is they make way too many excuses for Cat. Okay. Knicks Nation 1127. I liked Cat's play last night. So we got a Knick Nation and a Knicks Nation 1127. All right. All right.
So on the one, you leave the S off for savings. Is that how? Y'all remember that commercial?
Right. Right. Kim Doc, is it just me or is it a league-wide thing that injured players are suddenly ready to go against the Knicks? Interesting how that happens. Yeah, we've noticed that as well.
We call that the Madison Square Garden effect. That's what that is. Players going to get right against the Knicks. They could have a broken leg. They'll magically be ready to go for one game and then surgery the next day out for the season. So yes, we've noticed too, and it's an annoying occurrence for sure.
Yeah. Knicks Nation again. It seems like the chemistry is growing between Cat and Mitch. We all know Mitch is team first guy. That's why he's still here and has been the longest tenured Knick on the team. I definitely noticed the chemistry growing between those two. David Smith, how is Deuce getting more minutes and field goal attempts than Cat lately? His coach is Looney Tune. It's just lately. It's just lately. But I hear you. All right. Okay. Paris Duggar, appreciate the super chat. The only playoff type minutes we've seen with Mitch and this team was the two Vegas games, and we look like a team that will be special when the stakes are higher. Okay. All right. I like that. I like that. Ally Wise, peace to you. Appreciate you. Wiz, I want to make an intelligent comment, but it's too early for me to think of one. On the West Coast, joining us. What is it, like 7 o'clock? Appreciate that. Bob Solo answered the question. The idea is to develop while contending. You get the best experience in live games, staying with the 8-man plus Diawara. I mean, I think he is developing while contending. Does that mean they have to play in every single game? And how many, and Bob Solo, how many players would you like to see how many young players would you like to see in the nightly rotation? And at whose expense? Who would you take out of the rotation for them? And whose minutes would you lessen for them? Let me know. And anybody else who shares what he's saying. I swear I'm gonna mix it up after this Knicks Nation's comment. It seems like it's just been the Knicks Nation show. The kids have to win the minutes in practice, G League, and when they get NBA minutes. If the minutes are not positive, else don't expect NBA minutes. Okay. They did come in and win some games for us, but I think Ron, shout out to Ron, still Knick fan, said, we always want to point to when they came in and helped us win, but then when we lose, in the minutes and they've played in that game, we never point to them. We always point to the starters, right? So if you want to give them credit for how they give us positive minutes and we win, then they also have to be criticized in those minutes when they don't give us positive minutes and we lose that game. It can't just be, oh, they helped us win. And then when we lose, Brunson got to be better. Got to be better. They either part of the equation or they're not part of the equation. Okay. Welcome back, Keith Turner. We miss you, man. If these
Amen.
young players want playing time, then go out there and take it. Let's stop babying them. Okay. All right. I think Anna Grell, appreciate you. Good morning. All gritty win in the road. Don't care about the record of the opponent. Okay. Shout out to Jesus Alindre. I hope I got that right. Who's going to win the NBA Finals this year? Did you guys see the Warriors Heat winning games, but they lost last night, but they're starting to win games now? I think OKC is the favorite. Obviously, we hope our Knicks is going to put the monkey wrench in that. But I think OKC remains the favorite, though they got off to a hot start. They've kind of come back to earth since then, but they're the reigning champs. So I would think they're still the favorite. East Blue Drew said, "Nah, I agree. You got to look at their production as a whole. As a whole, yep. Knicks, Nick Nation without the S. I think Mike Brown sees this road trip as a critical point in the schedule, and he's leaning on his veterans and winning by any means necessary." Yeah,
Amen. Great comment.
I
I
would
love
agree
that.
with that.
100%.
Yeah. Um, any last words, Jeff?
Well, it's always more fun to do these shows after a win. Thank you, Queen. I love this outlet. I love that we get to chop it up about right afterwards and give, but with enough time where I can, take the emotionality out of it and learn about this team. Great conversation in the chat. You guys are such a huge part of what we do, and we don't really have a show without you. So I wanted to say thank you for that, and a busy week ahead, and a couple days off though before we go to Sacramento. It's been a minute since we've had 2 days off in a row, so we may not know what to do with ourselves for a couple of days because we've had so many many games. It seems like every other day for about a month that we've had a game, so it's going to be a little bit weird, but then we're back to back. So the NBA schedule is a strange creature for sure, but I think this is a critical time for the Knicks. I think we need to continue to stack wins if we want to be in contender status, because if you look at what is it that Phil Jackson said, you need to get to 40 wins before you get to 20 losses to be a legitimate contender. And so we've got quite a bit of work to do if we want to get there. I think we need to go like 16-5, or something like that over these next 21, 22 games. So this is a critical stretch for us to see who we're going to be, right? Then there are exceptions to that. The Pacers last year got off to a slow start and then, just hit their stride at the right time. So it's, that's just a general rule and not a, hard, fast one. But I think that there's certainly some wisdom in that. And so hopefully we continue to get better. And, the season's almost half over already. So.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate you, Jeff, particularly for your flexibility. I have to get on the road, so this would usually have been a lunchtime show. We had to move it to the morning. I also appreciate the chat. It seems like it doesn't matter when we go. You guys have been pretty loyal to the channel, pretty loyal to the recap show. When we go at lunchtime, you guys are there. When we go earlier, you guys are there. So I really do appreciate the chat, the replay game, the silent listeners. Thursday we have a game, so you guys be sure to subscribe, have your notifications on, because we're either going to go Tuesday night or Friday night. Tuesday night I could do either night. So I'll check with, I know Tuesdays is better for you. I'll check with Ajay, I'll check with Jerrell and whoever else is joining us. And then we'll see. We do, Bob Solo. We play Wednesday and Thursday. Anyway, until next time, family, peace.
Sister, you're one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's her.
shine. Don't so,
Where you at? Where you at?
don't so,
Where you at? Where you at?
don't so,
What?
don't so.